Welcome to Move the Chains with Jonathan Rivers. Here's your host, Jonathan Rivers.
And let there be football. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Jonathan Rivers. And the NFL draft is finally passed. And I know that there will be players that don't live up to expectations. People will call them bust. It happens every year. It's inevitable. But what's also inevitable is that there will be players as rookies that have immediate impacts on their teams this season. And I've made a list of players that I feel fit that mold. And as always, we'll answer your social media questions about the NFL draft, what people felt about the results of their teams, and everything else regarding the landscape of the NFL. Why do strength of schedules come out before the NFL season and people tell us who's going to have the hardest schedule and the weakest schedule? And I'm going to tell you why that narrative is complete nonsense. And lastly, the champs have extended their championship window, and the entire NFL should be worried about it. All that and more right here on Move the Chains, but you know how we do it. Let's kick it off with First Down. So the NFL draft for 2024 is complete. And when I went back and looked at all the draft picks and I looked at the teams and some of these young men that I followed in college, and I said based on the team they went to, the fit of the position, the need, the schemes, and the coaches, I created a list of players that I think are going to have an immediate impact and may not just be all rookies. A couple of them may end up being all pros in their rookie season in the 2024 season. So let's kick it off with Amarius Mims. This is the offensive tackle out of Georgia that was taken in the first round by the Cincinnati Bengals. And I want to tell a story so I can talk about how important this pick was for Cincinnati. In 2020, Tom Brady left the Patriots and signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And what was everybody talking about? The Tampa Bay defense, which was good before Brady got there, which they should have been. And then they talked about the signing of Rob Gronkowski. And then they talked about the signing of Antonio Brown. That was everything everybody talked about. But what did I focus on in the 2020 season for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Their first-round pick, Tristan Wirfs out of Iowa. And why was that important? Well, that's because that was a left tackle. Not only did he start as a rookie for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he didn't give up a sack that season. He was all rookie, and since then he's been an all-pro and a second-team All-Pro, respectively, in the next two seasons. They were able to solidify that offensive front to protect Tom Brady. What has been Joe Burrow's issue since he's been in the NFL? Health. Half the seasons he's been the starting quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals, he's been hurt. And even though he was able to help lead the Cincinnati Bengals to the Super Bowl, he has been hit more than almost any other quarterback in the NFL. And the Bengals have tried to address the need up front on the offensive line, and this tries to keep them in that mold. So I love the pick for the Bengals with Amarius Mims. They've got to protect their star quarterback, Joe Burrow, if they plan on having any shot at not only winning the division, but having a deep run in the playoffs. I want to stay at the University of Georgia for this next guy. Let's go ahead and pull him up. Ladd McConkey. If you don't know who this is, you'll probably say, well, hey, he might remind you of a Julian Edelman, or some type of small slot receiver that people can use at certain times in the game. What I'm going to tell you is that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions ever. Ladd McConkey is a baller. If you didn't watch him at the University of Georgia, you're in for a treat. And I think he went to the right spot, not only because Justin Herbert lost guys like Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, but because Ladd McConkey is rare when it comes to receivers. You can play him on the outside, but you can also play him in the slot. And listen, he runs every route in the route tree, no matter if it's a go route, no matter if it's a slant and go, no matter if it's a post. Ladd McConkey has blazing speed, and he has recovery speed, which means that once that ball is caught, if he runs a stop route, he can accelerate quickly. His hands are phenomenal, and he can also block. For somebody that a lot of people deem to be undersized, I think Ladd McConkey will be one of the best picks in the NFL draft this year. And if you want me to give you a player comparison in terms of production, look at what Puka Nacua did for the Rams as a rookie this year. I think you'll see the same out of Ladd McConkey. All right, let's go to the next player. Terrion Arnold went to the University of Alabama. I want to bring up some names. Dee Milner, Patrick Surtain II, Diggs for the Dallas Cowboys. Do you know what they all have in common? They all play DB at the University of Alabama. And no matter who the secondary coach is for the University of Alabama, before this season, Nick Saban had his stamp all on the DBs, literally being on the field, coaching up the defensive backs because that's what he knows best. And I'm going to tell you something. Not only is Terrion Arnold somebody who has the capability of being a shutdown corner, he's strong, he's physical, he can play press man coverage, he can play well in zone, but I heard him do an interview on national television leading up to the draft. And the leadership qualities that exuded from his mouth were phenomenal. you can tell this young man understands the process. And he talked about being redshirted at Alabama and why it was a good thing for him, because while he was physically ready, he wasn't mentally ready. He didn't understand everything he needed to compete at a high level at a Division I program like Alabama. From the people in the stands to the defenders or the offensive players he was going to have to face, he understood it took more than just being physically gifted to be phenomenal. And that's why being a culture creator, which Terrion Arnold is going to be big for what Dan Campbell is building there in Detroit. All right, and we've got Laiatu Latu next, this edge rusher out of UCLA. Do you remember when the Colts were good? Everybody remembers the Peyton Mannings and the Reggie Waynes and the Marvin Harrisons, but they had two edge rushers in Robert Mathis and Dwight Freeney. This is that guy. He has great bend. He has great repertoire of weapons with his hands and his feet at that edge rusher spot. Laiatu Latu will be an individual that can play the run and rush the passer. And he will be an edge rusher / defensive end that will cause havoc in that 4-3 defense that the Colts have under new head coach Shane Steichen. All right, now Ricky Pearsall, a lot of people looked at this as a reach. I love the move because if the San Francisco 49ers are not sold that they're going to be able to keep Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel in the next season, why not go and get a big receiver who is a 50-50 jump ball prodigy? Ricky Pearsall can go up over any defensive back and bring it in. And that's something you want under Kyle Shanahan's system, especially in the timing offense that they run with their quarterback, Brock Purdy. All right. And now we've got Quinyon Mitchell, this DB out of Toledo. Now, I didn't watch a lot of Toledo games, but what I want to let you know about Quinyon Mitchell is that he is going to be a star with the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think he'll start in his rookie season. Not only does he have 4.3 speed, he has phenomenal ball skills. He had over 37 or 38 pass breakups in college this past season, which led all of college football. This man understands coverage, he understands how to read receivers, and he has great recovery speed. So even when he is beat off of the line of scrimmage, he can recover sort of like primetime Deion Sanders back in the day and make a play. And that's something the Philadelphia Eagles needed sorely because they were terrible in the secondary last season. All right, when we come back for the break, your questions on social media. We'll be back with more Move the Chains right after this. And welcome back into the show. Now, it's probably time for your favorite segment of the show. It's where I take the social media and take questions from you. It's funny because there have been a lot of people that have been upset on the takes that I've had in the past, especially about Michael Penix Jr. and having multiple good quarterbacks on your roster. And this is what I want. I want all the smoke, which means I want your feedback. Let's go ahead and get to it. It's time for Second Down. All right, so let's go ahead and start with the first question via social media. All right, Erica R. asks, what's more important when it comes to the NFL draft? Drafting the best player available or drafting based on position need? Now, this is a phenomenal question. I think this is an age-old question that a lot of people have. In my estimation, I'd always take the best player available. And the reason I say that is because you can't always create a culture from a position need. Now, I understand teams need to fill position needs. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. The goal actually is to try to fill your position with the best player available as well. You want it to be twofold because there's versatility there. But I know if I need an offensive lineman up front, I want to take care of my quarterback. But if I have a defensive back or if I have a receiver, if I have an offensive lineman that is just so different, so special, not just on the field, but in the weight room, in the film room, with the media, with his teammates, who can just create an aura of invincibility when it comes to being worried about anything other than being great at football, I can't pass that guy up. Because when you look at NFL teams that are successful, culture comes first. This is why I never buy into the fact that when teams trade for big-time talent, everybody assumes that talent will just come to fruition and it'll look like a championship that year. There has to be cohesion, which is why I like the best player available in that spot. All right, what do we have next? Montreal T asks, what division do I feel will be the best in the NFL in 2024? I truly believe that the NFC North is headed for a reign of supremacy. And it's not just about the quarterbacks. When you look at a team like Chicago, they may be the worst team in the division, but I think they'll be better. And I judge the best the best division in the NFL based on what the level of competition looks like in terms of how hard it is to beat the worst team. Chicago may be the worst team, but I don't think they're going to be an easy out. I look at Minnesota. This may be one of the most intriguing teams in the NFL for me in 2024. They let Kirk Cousins walk. Atlanta paid him more money, and Minnesota didn't try to fight for it. Why do you think that is? Do you think it's because they have a guy like Justin Jefferson, they have a second-year player now in Jordan Addison and T.J. Hockenson? Do you think it's because they have individuals that can make plays and they feel like even with a rookie quarterback in J.J. McCarthy, he can come in and do what he did at Michigan, be good. You don't have to be exceptional. We just don't need you to be bad. We just don't need you to turn the ball over. And when Brian Flores got there, remember, 2 seasons ago, the Vikings made the playoffs but had the worst defense in the NFL. When Brian Flores became the defensive coordinator, they moved up to about 15th or 16th. That's phenomenal movement on the defensive side of the football. Combined with what they have offensively and Kevin O'Connell, I think the Vikings will be intriguing. And not to mention what you have with Jordan Love in the Packers and Jared Goff in the Lions. They're self-explanatory. So I think the NFC North may be the best division of football this upcoming season. All right, what do we have next? So you see some video from the Senior Bowl here, and I'll give you the question. Will Bo Nix be the starter in Denver in 2024? I think the answer is a resounding yes. And I'm going to give you my vantage point on this situation. When Bo Nix got to Auburn, started as a freshman, I was actually in the building in Atlanta when they played, I think it was Washington, in his first start as a freshman. And Bo Nix was not good at all. Auburn ended up winning the football game, and I remember talking about, because Bo Nix did lead a fourth-quarter comeback, he led the final drive for Auburn to take the lead and win that football game. And I think he was maybe 9 for 22 and 9 for 23 with 150-something yards, if I remember correctly. And I just remember going home and screaming and saying, how are people saying Bo Nix is any good? He played a terrible game. And he was so inconsistent at Auburn, I didn't know what the future held for Bo Nix. But when Bo Nix transferred and went to Oregon, I knew in my mind that it was Auburn possibly holding him back. And I think the times he struggled at Auburn helped him at Oregon have the best completion percentage in the nation, and now he's a first-round pick for the Denver Broncos. And I want to remind you about this. Sean Payton had Drew Brees. And what was Drew Brees? He was undersized, didn't have the strongest arm. And people put Bo Nix in that same mold. Now, Bo Nix is a whole lot more athletic, as you can see right here in the video, but he's a gym rat, which Sean Payton loves, and he's a football savant. And when you have a head coach for a father and a former quarterback for a father, those are the type of things you get. All right. Hey, when we come back from the break, it's my nonsense narratives. You know you don't want to miss it, so stick around. We'll have more Move the Chains right after this. And welcome back into the show. And before we get to my favorite segment of the show, my nonsense narratives, I want to take the time to sincerely thank everybody for watching Move the Change. The feedback has been phenomenal, even from those people who hate the takes that I'm giving. I want to remind everybody that I'm not a hot take guy. I don't say things just to be a contrarian. I say things because I truly believe them. So I really appreciate the feedback. We'll talk to you later on about how you can subscribe to the YouTube channel. But thanks for watching here on WXTX Fox 54 as well. So let's go ahead and get into it. Go, nonsense narratives. You know, I love this segment, and I know it may make me seem as a little bit of a football snob, and that's cool. I just don't like things that don't make sense. And I'm not somebody who's upset that I don't know everything. I embrace the fact that I don't know everything because there's an opportunity to learn there. But again, when it comes to these nonsense narratives, they really get under my skin. They really grind my gears if you ever watch Family Guy with Peter Griffin. But I'll tell you what it is right here. Look at the lower third. Strength of schedule matters in the NFL. Now, what you're probably saying is, oh, it doesn't matter how strong a schedule is when a team is playing, if they get to the playoffs or not, if they'll win a division. Yes, that matters within the context of what I just said. As the season progresses and you develop an understanding of what teams are good, the strength of schedule actually matters. But what I'm telling you is the strength of schedule doesn't matter when you're putting it out preseason based on what the teams you're facing did the previous year. Let me get the graphic right here. I want to show you guys this. Now, this is a 2024 schedule predictions per sharpfootballanalysis.com. And I appreciate them because they gave me the opportunity for this graphic. But what I don't appreciate is that you're telling me that the Atlanta Falcons, the Chargers, the Bears, the Jets, and the Saints have the easiest schedule coming up. Now, if you understand that the Falcons are 1 and the Saints are 5, then you're understanding that they think the NFC South is going to be trash this year because that's where both of those teams reside. But let me ask you this question. How are you going to accurately depict what a team looks like in the upcoming season based on what they were before? Are we not taking into account free agency signings? Are we not taking into account players that are either retiring or being traded or signing free agent contracts somewhere else? Are we not taking into account the NFL draft? Are we not taking into account change at the head coaching spots or the coordinators? I want to give you an example. The Philadelphia Eagles. Everybody thought the Philadelphia Eagles, coming off of a Super Bowl berth a couple of years ago, were going to be one of the best teams in football, and they were for 75% of the season. But what people don't realize is that even though they were winning, there were issues. And a lot of people don't understand that I think losing offensive and defensive coordinators mattered. They mattered. Jonathan Gannon and Shane Steichen both got head coaching jobs, and Nick Sirianni struggled to keep that team together. So I can't sit here and say, hey, Pittsburgh's going to have the hardest schedule because the teams on their schedule did great last year. I don't know what teams are going to look like this year based on what they were last year. So as the season progresses, let's talk about the strength of schedule. But don't sit here and tell me that strength of schedule matters before the season has even been played because of what they were last year. NFL teams will never be what they were the previous year. They'll be better or they'll be worse, but nobody will ever stay the same, even if the roster is exactly the same. All right, that's it for my nonsense narratives. I'm going to calm down. I'm going to take us a break, but when we come back, it'll be the final drop. More Move the Chains right after this. And welcome back in to Move the Chains. It's the last segment of the show, so you know what that means. It's time for the final drive. Don't be mad at me when I say this. The Champs have extended their championship window. I said it. The Kansas City Chiefs have extended their championship window. And I'm going to tell you why. 3 reasons why. 1, they got better when nobody's looking. Remember when they traded Tyreek Hill? Did anybody pay attention that they were bolstering the defensive side of the football for the past 3 or 4 seasons? They've been drafting people on the defensive side of the football, and they've been producing early, and they helped lead the Chiefs when their offense was struggling before the playoffs to back-to-back championships. They addressed their biggest hole in their roster this year via the draft and free agency. The signings of Hollywood Brown and the drafting of Xavier Worthy out of Texas will be phenomenal. With that offensive scheme and that mind of Andy Reid and the explosive capabilities of guys like Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, and Isaiah Pacheco, the Chiefs are going to be phenomenal. And that's why the usual suspects are always in place for the Kansas City Chiefs. All right, guys, I want to take time to thank you for watching the show. Don't forget, you can always catch us on YouTube as well. You can go to @move_the_chains. Make sure you leave a comment, like, subscribe to the channel, because that'll give you an opportunity to have your questions asked right here on Move the Chains. Hey, it's your boy, Jonathan Bear Rivers. As always, it's been a pleasure. And until next time, God bless.